Hello, hello, hello. Crafty Chris here for another Scrap Your Scraps Thursday night. So tonight I'm going to show you how to make these cute little folders that you can use either on a layout to be able to use as a flip flap um, or as a card, making use of your envelope punch. So a lot of us have these envelope punches at home, and we use them for envelopes, but there are other things you can use them for. So let me show you how to make these cute little file folders that you can bunch together to make a little mini album, or you can use them on your layout pages, or you can use them as a card. All right, so first of all, we're going to cut two pieces of paper. One of the papers that we're going to cut is 6.5 inches wide by 10 inches long. Okay, so you need one paper that is 6.5 inches wide by 10 inches long. All right, then the second paper we're going to cut for a slightly smaller version is 5 3/4 wide by 8.5 long. So 5 3/4 wide by 8.5 inches long. Now, you can cut these file folders in any shape or size you need, depending on what the size what you're sticking on it is. So I'll show you how to figure out that math afterwards. But let's first figure out how to do the actual punch. All right, so you're going to need your little score mechanism. Okay, so first we're going to take the 6 3/4 inch. Is that the one that I was talking about? I just moved my notes. I'll measure. This is a 6.5 inch one, and we're going to put the 6.5 inch paper centered on your board. So if you look down your board, you can see the little cutting mechanism there. You want this just to be centered in the center of that metal cutting mechanism, and you're going to punch. Then you're going to move over. Now this is going to create the tabs, so you can have a little 1-inch tab if you're doing multiples of them, or a 2-inch tab, or a 3-inch tab. I'm going to go, since I'm just going to show you one to put in a layout, I'm going to go to a 3-inch tab. Okay, and I'm going to press again, and this is what I end up with. Now I'm going to turn this around, and again, line it up at the center, and line it up at my 3 inches. Okay, so that's all I need the board for at this point. Now I'm going to get my cutter, and it's best to have not a guillotine, but one of these, and I lost the blade. One of these blade cutters. Okay, and we are going to remember that the left side is always the tab, the right side is the piece we're getting rid of. So I line up this point with the center of the what would you call it, that divot where the blade is going to cut through, and make sure that my wire is lined up and touching that point. I'm going to make my cutter go up to this open section that we cut out with the notch. Okay, and there we end up with, oops, it's a little fuzzy. And now we ended up with our tab. Okay, so then I'm going to rotate 180 degrees, line up my point with the tab, and cut to that center section. Okay, and because I can't stand over my cutter, I'm actually cutting into the paper. You don't want to do that. I'm doing that because I'm not over top of my cutter, but you want to do it so it doesn't fall in that, cut into that tab. Okay, now we know this paper is 10 inches wide, so halfway is going to be 5. So where the tab is, I'm lining it up with 5. And I'm just going to take my score tool and just lightly score, depending on how hard your paper is, just lightly score down so that you can line up, line up this point with that point, and your score line should be in the center of that, which is awesome. Okay, and there we have it. Now I messed up in my cutting, so I've actually got a bit of a mess on mine. So you can have your background, the backside tab at the bottom or the top, whatever you want. Now, let me just show you what size photos fit on here. I've got some scrap paper. I'm going to cut a 4x6. Okay, so this is my 4x6. I'm going to stick it down. So 4x6 goes on the front. I think I will leave that. And it lines up nicely all the way around, 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So it's nice and framed. And then on the inside, we're going to do 3x4s. And if I'm not mistaken, this should be 2.5. That's not going to work. That'll work on the next one. So I'm going to measure 3x4s. So I'm going to cut 4s first. Okay. And then 3s. 1. And I want 4 3x4s. 2. This is a little small. And this should be 3 inches, which it is. So I can get 2 more out of that. 3 and 4. There we go. And I'm just going to put some adhesive on the backs of each of these. These are just to show you the biggest size you can, standard photos you can put on here. So then you're just going to line that up around, a little closer to the top than the bottom, because you want to have a space between them, but you want to line them up sort of evenly. There we go. And oops. Something like that. I'm not over top. Hopefully that's looking even. All right. So this is, I need my pen, so I can write. This will do. So this is a 4x3, 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 and a 4x3. So that's ready to go and be placed on. This is a 4x6. So this is ready to go, and I'm going to glue this side down onto my layout, and I cut my my page protector from this point to this point with an X-Acto knife, just to slip this so that it pops out of the page protector, and I can show you how to do that too. All right, so that's the 6.5 by 10, which gives you 4x6 and 4 3x4s or 4x3s. Okay. And now we're going to do the next one, which was, here. This one was 5 3/4 by 8.5. Now I'm not quite sure about this, 5 3/4 by 8.5, but we'll figure out whether or not we need to trim it down slightly, and I can adjust the measurement in my notes afterwards. So I'm putting the short edge up at the top, lining it up with the center, pushing down. So there's my first edge. Then I'm going to move this over 3 inches. Push down again. Okay. What I did there is I just rotated it so that the bottom small edge now is at the top. I didn't flip the paper over. And if you flip the paper over, then you get tabs on the same side. So you want them on different sides, okay? So there's our paper. There's my garbage. All right, and now I'm going to rotate this so that my long edge is there, lining up the tip of my tab with the center or with the wire on my cutter. Okay, and I'm going to stand up and I just cut to that center cutout. And there we have our first tab. Then I rotate it so the bottom long edge is now at the top, lining up this point at the top. Again, going into the center. Oh, and I just cut myself because I left that blade open. And there you have your 2 tabs. Now, this is 8.5, so 4 1/4 is halfway. I'm going to line up this tab with the halfway point and use my bone folder here to give myself a nice fold. This is slightly heavier paper, and it's cracking. It's too heavy. Okay, so there you go. Something to keep in mind. You don't want to have too heavy paper. All right. So there is our finished folder. You can decide which side you want as your front and which side you want as your back. I'm flipping it the other way because I kind of like the way this one looks. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it that way. I turned it inside out. I'm not really thrilled with what's going on there, but I can finish that with some tape to keep that down so it doesn't break apart. All right, get rid of my scraps. And then on this one, we should be able to do a 3 by 5.5. So let me get my cutter and make a 3 by 5.5. Inch by 5.5 inch. Does that make sense? Or is it 3.5 inches by 5? Wrong way. Okay, scrap paper. I'm not going to worry about it. Another piece of scrap paper. So it is actually 3.5 by 5. So I'm going to do my 3.5 by 5. Okay, there's our 3.5 by 5, and that's going to fit nice and rounded. Okay, so we are a little long, so that 5 3/4 doesn't seem to work for me because I think I was thinking 3 by 5.5, so that's fine. So what I am going to do is trim this down, and your measurements in future will be adjusted as well. So I kind of want it to go. I'm going to take some off of each end so I can round that corner. And okay, so it's going to be like that. Let's stick that down. Sort of centered. There we go, something like that. Okay, and I'm just going to trim a little bit off and then we'll decide what that final measurement is. I'm going to use a chopper for this. I'm going through 2 layers, and I kind of want to take like 1/8 off of each side maybe. And that gives us, so our width is going to be 5.5. So it's 5.5 by Oh, right, I'm measuring to the very edge. Sorry, I was looking at that going, why is that not 8.5? So it's 5.5 by 8.5. So let's change my notes on that. You can write that down. So 5 and 0.5 by 8.5. And that works out perfectly. Alrighty. Put the big cutter away. And this gives us a 3.5 by 5 photo. Okay, and inside we're going to do 2 by 3s. So I'll get my little chopper here, which is much handier. And I think some of these papers are close enough to the right size. So there's a 2 by 3. This I think is maybe 2 by 3. So there's number 2. And 2 by 3. And I just need one more. And a 2 by 3. There we go. Okay. And these guys, we're just going to line up. I'm just putting glue on the backs of all of them, because these are my placeholders. We're just kind of going to line those up inside. Oddly enough, I have sort of a little frame already for these, which worked out incredibly well on this particular paper. But I'm sure it's not always going to be that way, depending on what paper I use. So here we go. And this is a 3 by 2, 3 by 2, 3 by 2, and 3 by 2. And there we are. That's our little 3 by 2 folder. So we have our 4 by 6 folder, our 3.5 by 5 folder. Inside we have 4 additional pictures. Okay. Now, I was going to show you how these can be put on a paper and then how you can cut a page protector. So let me pull out. I'm just going to put them on a white piece of cardstock for now. One of my cheesy cheap cardstocks. There we go. So I used the back of things. Okay, so let's say we are putting this down on, and you know, you can have it this way too, so it folds left or right. I'm going to do this one. I'm just going to randomly put it up here, let's say. And I usually use top loading pages. You can do this from side loading as well. You just have to remember the paper's going in this way. So when you're doing your slits, you want to make sure that you have the opening on the left side if you're putting it with the spine on the left. The opening is on the right side. If you're putting it with the spine on the right, then the opening is on the left side. And I am gonna try and do this one. Maybe let's see if we can challenge ourselves. To do 2 cuts in 2 different directions. So I don't know if this is going to work, folks, but we're going to try it. I'm opening a new package. I do strap albums. Doesn't matter if you do strap albums or you do side loading albums. Makes no difference. Or if you do, what do you call it? What am I trying to say? Binder albums. It's the same either way. So what you're going to do is you're going to stick the whole page in without opening anything up, because you've got to figure out where everything is going to go. I like to make sure my pages are as close to the edge as possible. In the strap album pages I have, there's a little divot here, so it can only go so far. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a permanent marker, a very fine permanent marker, and I'm just going to mark, let me do it this way, I'm just going to mark about a 1/16 of an inch out from the edge of this spine, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is I'm giving myself a little bit of extra cut so I don't rip the page protector when I'm sticking it through. Okay, then I'm going to get myself an X-Acto knife and a metal-edged ruler, because you don't want an X-Acto knife without a metal-edged ruler, and I'm going to pull these guys out so I don't cut them. And I can still see my marks. There's my you can't see it, but I can see my little black mark there, and you'll be able to see yours. Yeah, sorry, went on a little bit of ride, and you're getting some kind of light happening there, aren't you? That's a little better. That's a little better. So I'm going to cut between, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to cut between this and this dot. I'm not going to do it right through the paper, so I need to have my mat. And I'm going to put my mat inside my page protector, because I don't want to cut both sides of the page protector. There we go. And now I can line up my lines and cut. So I'm going to start here and finish there. And sometimes I wouldn't press too hard right off the bat, because sometimes you need to go over it twice. And now I'm going to turn this around and do the one at the side here, which is a dot there and a dot there. Line up my page, protect my lines. Oh, okay, so let's see. There we go. There's my line. I was looking at a dot on the mat, and that would have been a problem. Okay, so now I've got my two dots, and I'm going to cut from one to the other. I don't even think I need to cut another one. Nope, that went through perfectly. Okay, now put your cap back on your craft knife so you don't cut yourself. Now this is the tricky part. So, a couple things back. All right, so here's the top of my page. I have one slit here open, and I have another slit here open. Okay. I'll get my page, and what I've got to try to do is line everything up. So I need to do a little bit of wiggling for this, because it's not going to want to go through completely naturally. So you're going to have to curl your page a little bit. Do you see how I'm curling my page a little bit? So that I can get this tab through that slice. There we go. And see, now it's on the other side. Now down here, I need to lift up and pull this page out there. And it's better if you can do it all in one fell swoop, but it's kind of tricky to do that. And sometimes you have to pull back so that your paper goes underneath. Now remember, I'm using a cheap piece of paper, in this, so it kind of folds up on me. But there we go. So we have you can see the reflection. We have our page protector there, and our flap is outside of our page protector. And we have our page protector there, and our flap is outside of our page protector. So you can do it both ways. You just have to be willing to jiggle and wiggle things a few ways. And you can do this, of course, in the other direction too. So we could have taken this one. Let's see, I have another couple of them that I pre-did. And I'll show you what I mean. So you can have one opening this way as well. And you can have one opening this way as well. Now, the more flips and flaps you put on one page, the trickier it is to get them all in the slots. So my suggestion is to limit yourself to one or two only. And then you can put the other two, if you want to do two more, on the matching page. So that would be on this page here, because here's the spine. So just a caution that you might feel that it will be a bit of a challenge. Okay, now to make these into albums, how are we doing for time here? Oh, I got a little more time I can give you. So I'm going to do a bunch of these. And we're going to do them really quick. So my measurements are 5.5. So these are all 6-inch ones. So these I can make. And I'm going to get my big chopper. I don't need my big chopper. I'm not doing 12 inches. That's right. So I'm going to cut these down. These are all, I'm going to be cut to 8.5 inches. And I show 6 on here. So from 12, I need to cut. 4 gives me 8. So 3.5 inches off. And that should leave me with 8.5 inches. And it does. Beautiful. So there's one. Oh, and I also have to make that 5.5 inches. So we're going to do that. So there we go. And that's one. What did I say? 3.5 inches? Yes. And these, of course, you're going to save for another project. And this is 5.5 inches. There we go. And then same with this. Oop. 3.5 inches. And then 5.75 inches. Oh, I think I cut one too small. No, 5.5 inches. 5.5 inches, sorry. I was correct in my other cuts. Okay, there we go. So we have 1, 2, 3 of the small ones. And now I've got one more paper. We're going to make that a bigger one, which is 6.75 by 10. This is a 12-inch paper, so I need to take off 2 inches. There we go. And this I'm going to have to use my other cutter for to get it to 6.75 inches. And then I'll review those measurements. 6.75 inches. There we go. I'm going to keep that nice strip. Okay. All right. So now, starting with this page, which is 6.75 inches by It's a little under 10 inches, but it'll be fine. Okay, starting in the center, lining up the center of this with the center of the mechanism inside your cutter, and cut. And then I'm going to move this over to 3 inches. So I'm lining up this edge with the 3-inch mark, and I'm cutting. Then I'm rotating 180 degrees, lining up the corner again, and then lining this corner with the 3. Okay, moving. Actually, I'm going to do all of my things, and then I'll do all the scoring, and then I'll do all the cutting. So there's our first one. Okay. Second one is a smaller one. Doing the same process, lining it up with the center of the mechanism, and lining this corner, this edge up to the 3, turning at 180, lining it up, and lining that edge up to 3. Oh, I forgot to tell you the measurement on this, so let me do that. These are the small ones, which are 5.5 by 8.5. Okay, so that's done. Lining up. You can see how quickly you can get a little album done, because I'm actually doing this right in front of you, live. Well, you're watching this on video, but I'm not editing this part. It's all going straight through. All right. There we go. So I've got all my corners and tabs cut. So you now have an envelope trimmer that becomes a tab maker. It can also be a tag maker, but that's for another day. All right, so now we're going to do our trimming. I am going to get my blade trimmer, because it allows me to just cut a portion. A guillotine will not work. I'm going to put my long sides in, and I'm going to cut from the square bottom here up to there, lining it up. There's one, and then I rotate it 180, lining it up again. There you go. Try not to go too far like I just did. There we go. There's one cut. Oh, while I have it on here, this was 8.5, so 4.25. So I'm lining up with my tab at 4.25, and I'm gently creating a fold line. Okay. Again, taking my square corner down here and lining it up. There we go. There's one side, rotating 180. Okay. Oh, did it again. And this again is at 4.25 for the halfway point. And I'm just going to give myself lightweight embossing there. And lining up the square corner at the bottom. This is very light paper, so I want to make sure I don't. Oh, my blade's getting dull. How do you know your blade is dull? You get a really bad cut edge. You see how fuzzy that is? Not good. Rotate it 180. Line it up again. Okay. And this again is 4.25 as a halfway mark. And we're just going to go lighter on this one because it's a lighter paper. And now this is our bigger one. Do the same process. Line up this corner with the center of your cutting mat. And you just cut into that groove. rotate 180. Okay, and this was the 10 inch, so 5 is my halfway point, so I'm lining my tab up with 5. Whoops. And this is again light paper, so I'm not going to go as heavy. Even not going heavy, I have a hole in it. Okay, so now I'm going to fold this. Oh, this has nothing on the inside. Oh well. That'll be fine. So I'm folding the edge here with the point on the back, and it should be perfect with my score line. Same with this one. Same with this one. This didn't do too bad. And the same with this one. Okay, so now getting this all together, I'm just going to leave these with the photo things on them because it doesn't matter one way or the other. You want to make sure that you have, you're going to be opening everything up, but you want to have some variety. So we have 2 large and 4 small. So we're going to have a big one on the outside to begin with. We're going to have a small one on the inside with the tab top to bottom there. Another small one on the inside, but I think we're going to put this tab down at the bottom. And this was a different size. And this one, we're going to put this one in with the tab at the top because this large one has the tab at the bottom. We're going to put this one in with the tab at the top. And then we are going to put this one in. I'm going to fold that with the tab at the bottom so I can flip that. And this one is going to go in with the tab at the top. Okay, so there are the layers of our little junk file folder book. Now all we have to do is poke it so that we can put it all together. So we're just going to remember our sections, and we're going to poke these 2 guys together because they are similar size. I'm just going to make sure they are centered. And I'm going to take a pokey tool. Doesn't matter what you use for a pokey tool. We're going to use a pin. I have a pin in my glue bottle. We're going to use a pin. So making sure that this is lined up, I'm going to poke somewhere in the center like that, right at the fold, somewhere in the outside like that. It's kind of better if you do this on the mat so you don't hurt yourself, and somewhere around, I'm trying to give it a ½ an inch from the edges. And now, so you're going to go down and up. So we need to have another hole here, about a ½ an inch. And then we're going to go down and up, another hole ½ an inch. And then we're going to go down and up. And then we're going to go down and up, down and up, and down and up. You don't have to have that many holes because it's light paper, but you know what? Doesn't hurt to do it. Now these guys are going to be the template. So I'm going to use this guy because I can see the holes really well. And I am going to line up and figure out what I can actually use of the holes I've created. And I want the ability so we're going to go in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can measure them if you really want to. 8, 9, 10. Okay, so that one's done. I'm going to line these two up. No, I'm going to keep using this as a template. Don't change things halfway, Chris. Not a good strategy. Kind of line it up centered. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't come up through one of the holes because it is inside a paper that does. So it's being held together. I think it was that way. Let's see. Yes, it was. So those are ready to go. And then I'm just going to do these guys. I might even cheat because they are the same size. And I am going to go through both. And you can have them to the top or to the bottom. I like mine centered, so I tend to just poke my holes always in and line everything up always centered. And you can probably see my pen going through. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're going to put everything together. Sorry, these go in there, that goes there, and then these go in there. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we need to have some thread, and I'm just going to use some embroidery floss. I always have it handy, and I usually, depending on the size of what it is I'm working on, I usually make sure I have at least the size of the work and maybe an extra 4 inches. Okay, so depending on the width of things, so for instance, this particular book is going to be 11 inches. Scissors to cut. Now I'm cutting, but I'm not going to use the full 6 strands that is usually in embroidery floss. I'm going to separate it into 3 because I don't need to have that much strength on this. It's just going to be bound together, and I can use that other one for another book. And now I'm just going to quickly make a big fat knot because you're going through paper. The knots can sometimes slip through, and then I usually seal it a little bit on the inside with some glossy accents or something or glue, just to make sure that it doesn't pull through. Now my knots are not sticking together. My hands are dry because I've been doing lots of media lately. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, one more. You normally don't have to do this many knots, but it just seems to not want to be. Okay, so you see how nice and bulby, if I can focus there, see how big that knot is? That just prevents everything from falling apart. Now, I want to make sure everything lines up. So I'm going to start, I don't think these guys hit that. That one does. Okay. So I'm going to start going through the ones I know that are going to hit each other. Oh, big, nice, big tapestry needle. It's not pointed on the end. It's kind of rounded. Because you already made the holes, you don't need the points. Okay, now I'm going to keep these all together, but because these guys missed the first hole, I'm just going to take the paper that has the first hole in it. And I'm just going to, oops, unthread my needle. Just Try that again. Okay. So you go there. And this one is the last one, so it also sees the first hole. Now, the second hole, we're going to have to kind of do step by step. So I'm going to go through the second hole on the back piece. This is going to look very uncoordinated, but once you've got the first one done, it all falls into place. Then the second one, I'm going up through that hole. So you can see I'm slowly getting all my layers lined up. And this is the, oh, come on, come on, come on. Third hole. And that's the second hole on this. So that's 2 papers. And I'm going to go in here. All right, so now everything is starting to line up. And these guys, I only had the second hole. There is my hole. Ah, there it is. Sometimes it's hard to find it, but just move it around in the light and it will become clear. There we go. And then this guy is right here. There we go. Okay, so now everybody's on. The rest of the holes should line up. So it's just that getting the shorter ones hooking up with the larger ones. So my next hole is here, and I'm just going to wiggle that through. Until it pops out this side. Okay. And then my next hole is here. I'm going to do the same process. Just going to wiggle it through. Make sure your finger isn't there, because even though it's not got a point on it, it can be uncomfortable if it jams into your finger. Okay, come on. Ooh, there we go. It's just a little stubborn. There we go. That's you. And I'm trying to kind of pull it a little bit tight. And now we're going to go down the next hole, which I think is here. Yes, it is. Again, fudging it through each of the layers if I have to, one at a time, which I don't like doing because I'm impatient. Where did it go? Here. There we go. And then there. All right. And making sure that you're pulling it snug, because it will catch on the paper and not come through snugly. Okay. Little fussy. There we go. Ah, that's the worst part, is when it comes unthreaded and you finally get it through and then there's no thread on it. Oh, the joys of crafting. And lining that up with the next hole, which is right there. And then these two guys are right there. Making sure everything is tight. And making sure you still have some thing to hold on to. You could use an embroidery needle with a point. It might, if you don't use a pokey tool that has a fair, decent sized metal poker, it is easier definitely to have 1, 2, there we go. Have a point. If you have a good sized pokey tool, you don't need the point because it gives you a nice sized hole. Okay. And you're just kind of sewing up. Okay, I gotta do one at a time here because this, I'm afraid I'm gonna rip this really light paper. I don't want to do that. There we go. And now these heavy ones I'm not so worried about. Just gotta find the hole. There we go. Okay, snugging it the whole way. And I haven't got far to go now. Actually, you know what? I am going to take that pin just to make it quicker. Make a nice big hole there. There we go. And I just pulled the thread out. It's not like ballet, folks. It's not all synchronized and well organized and put together to look super simple. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. It's much easier. And I'm almost at the end here. This is the last of everybody sticking together. There we go. And that made it much quicker. And then this is the 3 layers stuck together. Okay. Just keep that through. Don't lose it. Yay! Okay. Alright, so I am just going to put my needle back on my magnetic tray and my pin goes back in my glue. Not my finger, my glue. There we go. Alright, so now we can see that we just need to make sure that we tug it all the way along. Don't tug it too hard because you can rip the paper. So now we're going to make a couple of knots at the end here just to secure it and get that bulby knot looking thing. Make it look like a big fat knot. There we go, got a nice big bulby knot there. I'm going to trim it and I'm just going to seal it quickly. I'm just going to use some quick dry glue around it. I'm not going to close it up, obviously. There we go. And rub off whatever I get on my hands in the garbage because glue is awesome that way. You can just peel it off your skin. And there is your little journal. And inside you have all different size pages with photos. You can put little pockets on each of these pages, just photos on each of the pages, whatever you decide to do. And you saw how quickly I made that. And there you go. So, how we showed you today how to put these little file, first of all, how to make the file folders, and then how to put the file folders into your scrapbooking pages through the plastic so that the plastic covers the inside, but you have it accessible from the outside. showed you how to create a little flat book. And of course, a card is obviously just going to be one layer, folded and decorated on the front and back according to what you want to say. And now all I would do to change the sizes. Okay, let's say I wanted to do one that is big enough for a 4x3 photo. Okay, so this is my paper. Let's measure this paper. Let's call this a 4x3 paper or a 3x4 paper. Okay, 3x4 paper. For me to have the top and the fold, whatever I measure on this side, it has to be doubled for the other side, right? So I've got a tab out here, which is 1/2 inch. So that's a 1/2 inch tab beyond this edge. Then I have, let's say, a 1/4 inch space between the outside edge and inside edge. Then I have my 3x4. And then I have a 1/4 inch to the seam over here. Okay, so this is 1/4 inch. So we've got 3 plus a 1/2 is 4, plus a 1/4 and a 1/4, which is another 1/2. So that's 3 and a 1/2, 3 and a 1/2, plus another 1/2 is 4. So my total that I need wide on one side is 4 inches. Therefore, I need an 8-inch paper. So the length is 8 inch. Did you see how I did that? So a 1/2 inch, a 1/4 inch, 3 inches, a 1/4 inch. So 2/4 equal a 1/2 plus a 1/2 equals an inch. And this is 3 inches, so that's 4 inches. And then I've got to double it because I've got to have that same on this side, exactly. So doubling it gives me an 8-inch length, okay? And height is much easier. So it's 4 inches tall. I need to have a 1/4 inch at the top and a 1/4 inch at the bottom. So we are at 4.5 inches tall. So let's see if that works. I'm going to do it very quickly with a little scrap piece of paper that I pull up. Okay, we're going to try this paper. Get the bottom off here. There we go. All right, I want 4.5 inches wide. Four and a half inches wide by 8 inches long. I'm just going to cut out my arm here. 8 inches long. There we go. All right, some extra paper for my scraps. Okay, so this is 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches. I have to remember always to put the small edge in the top. The last one was not that way. Small edge in the top, cut down, and as I said, I'm going to do a 2-inch tab on this one because it's smaller. Rotate 180 degrees, put the corner in, line it up with the 2, put that in, take this away. That'll be something I can do with those little bitty bits. One day I'll figure something out, but not today. And I need my cutter again. Okay, so now I feel like I'm back on the roll. 1, 2. Okay, and there we are. And this was 8 inches wide, so 4 inches is what we are going to score at. And then I'm going to fold those edges to match. this is cardstock, so I'm just going to give it a nice little push. Okay, and there's my little pocket. Now, let's see if I've got the right size on this. I need, what did I say? A 4 by 3, right? This is 3 inches wide by 3.5 inches, so that's not big enough. So hopefully this will line up really nicely. 3 by, this is one of my bills for a purchase I made. 4, there we go. So this is 3 by 4 and it should fit in there perfectly. Look at that. Look at how perfect that fits in. So those are the measurements for 3 by 4 on the front. And I imagine that you could also put the 2 by 3s in here too, because the width is still quite wide, but you're going to have to be tighter in spacing them top to bottom. So I'm just going to show you what that will look like. Something like that. Okay, so you've got your 3 by 4 on the front and your 4 3 by 2s on the inside. Okay, so is that fun or what? And these guys, when they're spread out here, you've got lots of room for journaling. So we have got big folders, little folders, and our page, which has the folders put inside. And you can see how they can easily turn into a card. You decorate your card with happy birthday on the outside, flip it open with your message on the inside. So that's it for me. Whoa, that was whirlwind. I hope you enjoyed tonight's activities. I love doing this. So I do have to take a break next Thursday, as I won't be in the country. So I will see you the first week of October. Enjoy your fall. Bye.